Boy, have I got a topic for you today. I can't wait to go through this one. Stay with us. Here's the human resource. You know, when I talk to younger HR representatives, I inevitably get the question of, what do I do with those really difficult conversations? Because some things I'm just not comfortable talking to employees about, the topics are just not something that I find appealing. And I can't help but laugh because there's always one conversation that always comes to mind as being one of the most difficult conversations in all of human resources. In fact, I know of some people who can handle termination meetings and conversations so much easier than the conversation of hygiene. That, yes, we are going to talk about hygiene. Because I've told you a million times, if you haven't been in HR for very long, at some point in your career, you will be faced with a situation where you're confronted with the challenge of, what do we do with that person who smells so bad that people, they just don't want to be around them. People are complaining. And it actually, a situation came up here this past week, and I had to just kind of shake my head and go, you know what? Out of all the time that we've been doing this, and we've been doing this podcast for 5 years, the show, we started out with an actual show. We've had these HR topics and conversations long enough, and yet I don't think I've ever taken a stride at this conversation. So here we go. Because when I look back at one of my most difficult conversations, it involved a woman who had chickens. And the only thing we could figure, it was a cubicle village. Okay, so picture it. It's a cubicle village, mostly female, wide open. And of course, the cubicles are only, partial, so you can see over them. And yet the individual would walk in with this long sweater and hang it up on the corner of her cubicle. And inevitably, it was on the main aisle. But the only thing we can figure is she must have gone out to the coop to feed the chickens or to do what people do with chickens, I guess clean them in the morning. And she wore that sweater. And then she wore the sweater to work. And not that it was very noticeable that it was a chicken. It was those people who knew chickens knew it was chicken smell. The rest of us all just looked at it and went, oh, okay, well, it's something. And the owner of the company looked at me and went, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And so this issue here, most recent, involves cats. And I understand. I have had a cat, and I understand that if there are some that can spray, but to be spraying anywhere close to your clothing or your personal items that you bring in and out of work, that can be very disturbing. And so I thought, I'm going to do some research on this because, again, I haven't touched on the topic with the audience. But in the process, I ran across this absolutely delightful little blog, Marisa Eckberg, all the way down in Flower Mound, Texas, with Gray Owl HR, wrote this blog. And I called her. She is just a delight. She said, I can't believe you found that. I wrote that over 5 years ago. And I said, well, I think it's delightful. I think it's perfect. I want to bring it to my audience. She was unable to get on the podcast. I'll try to get her on for another topic because I just really enjoyed the conversation with her. But I was really impressed because she made it very concise. You can go out and Google it. Her topic is employee hygiene issues. Here's a script for speaking to an employee about body odor. And Marisa's very concise. She talks about the steps you should take if you're going to have this crucial conversation. And the first thing that she tells you to think about is, do you have facts? Is this one person complaining, or is this numerous people complaining? Do you know for a fact this isn't a personal attack on someone? Have you yourself, as an HR person or a business owner, have you gone out to determine whether this is a valid concern? And the situation that I dealt with here just last week, it was, unfortunately, it was a credible concern. And it was something that they had put off for months. Nobody wanted to talk to this individual, but they had enough evidence and enough individuals concerned that they themselves, the employees themselves, were approaching and talking to the employee. And it had now become this conversation and this disruptor for the company. So if you have your facts and you know that this situation is valid, then your second step is to determine your timing. And think about what she's saying here. This is not something that you want to just barge in and talk to an employee out in a cubicle village. You don't want to do it where everybody else can possibly see you doing it. You don't want to do it so that everybody can hear you doing it. Time it. When during the week, when during the day would be a good time to have this crucial conversation. I mean, let's think about it. Some people are going to handle this well, and some people aren't. In fact, it borderlines on emotion. If someone were to come to you and tell you you smell, would you not get a little bit defensive? And if that's going to be the case, having them in a discreet area, somewhere away so that they can go through their emotions and you can talk through the situation. That's one of the key elements to a successful conversation like this. So she then goes on to talk about, what do you say? And I thought she did a phenomenal job on this. It's all common sense, every bit of it. But I have talked to more individuals who have struggled with just looking somebody in the eye and crossing that line, that having her little script was just, it's just so good for this particular client. And she basically just says, I want to meet you privately because I need to speak to you about a very sensitive situation that's been brought to my attention. And I've had reports of a bad smell when coworkers are in close proximity to you. Now, that doesn't say anything more specific than what it has to say. Whether it's BO, cat, chicken, it could be, I don't know, maybe it's even bad perfume or bad cologne. You're starting out by saying it's sensitive and I need to talk to you because, well, I've gotten reports. So again, what did you just tell the employee? This isn't personal. This is not personal, but other individuals have noticed it. So it's not me against you. This is a concern of the companies. She goes on to include it's becoming a distraction in the workplace. So I'm bringing this to your attention in hopes that you'll help me come up with a solution. Is that not brilliant? I mean, I think so many of us want to just hit the topic and show some power, but get out right away. Look, you stink. You need to do something about this. We can't have you coming in here like this. So, fix it. But Marissa's reminding you that you need to, this is a partnership. Look, it's disrupting the productivity of the office. It's distracting our other employees. I need you to work with me. Let's come up with a solution. And that's, again, putting the business needs first. This is not personal. Do you have any ideas of what may be causing the odor? Now, when I was talking to this employee last week with my client, she automatically within the first sentence knew exactly what we were going to talk about. And she volunteered some of that information. But that actually goes a little bit further, because with her volunteering the information, that put my client in a much more relaxed state, because he suddenly realized, oh, okay, she's not going to go completely defensive, but I still don't have a solution. So Marisa's taking it one step further and offering the following comment. I'm here to help. So let me know if there's anything you need. However, I'm sure we can agree that this has been an uncomfortable conversation, and neither one of us want to have this again. Wouldn't it be wonderful if that was all it took? Wouldn't that be wonderful if that was all it took? And the individual would go home and take her chicken sweater and not either use it for the chickens or not bring it back to the office, right? Or if this individual would keep her personal items out of the reach of the cats so that they're not doing whatever they're doing to create this odor, or whatever it might be, change the cologne. If it were only that simple. And again, what you essentially did with this is you started in the interactive process. And I want to bring that up and put some emphasis on that, because Marisa does explain and give you that fair warning in the blog that this could be a medical issue. And what happens if it is? What happens if it's a chemical reaction and the individual, it just can't help it? I mean, we all know what garlic does. We all know what asparagus does. But what if it's a chemical reaction from a medication? If you have 15 more employees, you may have to abide by ADA. And what does that mean? Yeah, the individual may be requesting an accommodation in how they respond. And that in itself is a very delicate situation. And if that's the case, aren't you thrilled you had the conversation? Because then it takes it into another whole direction. And you may very well be able to come to a solution very quickly. But again, this is not something that goes away easily. So my biggest reminder to all of you is don't avoid these conversations. Don't. If you have to, again, practice. Practice on each other, other supervisors, other directors. And don't think that you're not going to have this conversation, because at some point, again, if you're in management at any capacity, this is going to come up. So learn from Marisa, who, again, look up her blog. She did a wonderful job on this. Hopefully I can have her on for another topic, because I really enjoyed our conversation. But remember, be proactive. Don't allow bullying. Don't allow an employee to get ostracized. Don't allow your environment to be disrupted to the point where somebody feels like they're being harassed. Crucial conversations. There you go. We just had one. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for coming to the Human Resource.